Welcome everyone. So I wanted to do a review for Hearts Iron 4, the expansion pack that was just announced yesterday. Now this is just a review of the announcement, so just wanted to give you a heads up. I did not actually play the game, so just heads up. Anyway, so the game was announced yesterday by Paradox Interactive. It's called Hearts Iron 4 Waking the Tiger, which it's focused on China, so why did they call it Waking the Dragon? Anyway, that would have probably fit a little bit better. Anyway, so yeah, it's been announced. I looked at the entire, as you can see here, I'm running the actual gameplay that they showcased yesterday. And you probably saw it already, but I just want to give you my heads up about what this game's looks like and just basically my opinion on it. So a couple things. I got my pros and cons list here. Even if you don't buy it, you're going to get a key feature of this, which is going to be the improved command and control. So when this game goes live, you're also going to get an update for your core game. And it's going to change a little bit of the command and control for the better. Okay? So right now, you can make armies out of divisions. And that's it. Right? And you can assign armies, this and that. But that's basically the limit of, they oversimplified the actual game in terms of the military for Hearts Iron 4. That was one of the biggest negatives that I had for it. With this new update, which is I believe the 1.5 update if I'm not mistaken, and with this expansion pack, they're going to change the way the game is going to be played militarily. So you can make theater groups, right? Which I believe you could do before army groups, right? And then armies under that. So you have theaters, army groups, armies, and then divisions. This is a good pro. This is improving the military system, making it a bit more in-depth to the way it was. You can actually promote generals to command armies or army groups. So that's good. That's great. So that's a pro of mine. I was really looking forward to this. However, I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of a con because they kind of work together. Where are cores? Me and Historical Gamer were having a talk about this on the last single malt strategy, which was episode 19, I believe. And how he was mentioning in World War II, you really don't hear much about cores. It's either divisions like the 101st or what was it? Third Army on the Patton, things like that. You heard of 38 Corps probably because I don't know. Maybe I could get a clip of it. I'll put it right there. Of that guy. So yeah. So you don't hear too much about corps, but they were there. It was part of the U.S. Army structure, U.S. Military structure, as well as other foreign armies used corps, right? And we still do today. So I think taking it out takes a lot of realism away from the game. It takes away a lot of the immersion that I felt is needed in this game. In essence, it's a military game, and when you're taking off a key part of the military structure, you're losing a lot of that game. So they're not putting back cores. They are changing the way skills are done for generals to promote them. But this goes into a second con that I have. So there's a thing called a red phone in the game, apparently, where like if you're playing Germany, Hitler can make decisions like promoting generals. But they were mentioning in this video here that you would have to gain a certain amount of points to promote your generals. And I was just thinking, I was like, yeah, because that's realistic, right? I mean, come on. If you're, Eisenhower, if you're Franklin Delano Roosevelt and you want to promote Eisenhower, you're not going to go like, hey, I need a certain amount of points to promote Eisenhower. No, you're commander-in-chief. You can tell Eisenhower, hey, man, you're going to be a 5-star general and run the show as Supreme Commander. It's just like that. Yeah, so I'm not really cool on that concept where you need points to promote generals or commanders. It's just like, why? I understand you're trying to, so you don't give the player, hey, well, he can promote and demote as he pleases, and that's giving them too much freedom. But that's more realistic. That provides more immersion, because if you were the commander of the country, you could technically do that anytime, right? You're not going to go before Congress and say, hey, I need a certain amount of points to promote, Eisenhower. It's like, no. Anyway, so that's my two cons. There's a bunch of pros. I already listed one. So the other pro that I have is they're including transit times for generals, because apparently some people, I'm pointing to some of you, not all of you. I have never done this, but this actually is a good idea for some of you that actually do this, is you moving generals around the world. So like, for example, if you put in Guderian on the Eastern Front, the Allies attack on the West, I'm going to move Guderian automatically to an army over there, and you're just popping him in and out of all these theaters. It's smart. It really is smart. So they caught on to that. So they're now adding transit time. So if you move, if you want to move Guderian from the Eastern Front to the Western Front, you're going to have to wait a little bit. So that's smart. I like that. And it adds a little bit more realism, because obviously if you tell Guderian on the Eastern Front, hey, you need to get to the West, it's going to take him some time. He's going to, dude, I got to get on a train or a plane and get there. It's going to take time. Most likely a plane, right? Who would take a train if you have a plane? And I guess my last pro, assigning air groups to units. So you can now add, bombers or fighters and actually attach them to armies. So as the army moves forward, the air group goes along with it, and you don't have to constantly. It's one less, clickbait, stuff where you constantly have to move your fighters and bombers to accommodate the offensive. So this is really cool, because it's just, like I said, one last thing you need to do. You don't have to keep clicking, I forgot to move these guys. You just assign them and they go. And it's very smart. It takes, it doesn't take away from the realism or the immersion factor. It takes away from your hassle. So I like that. That's a pro right there. And that's about it. They didn't showcase too much off of it. They went into some parts. If you want to watch the whole thing, obviously it's on Paradox's channel. You can go watch it. It's about 30 minutes. They didn't go too in-depth into the actual, all the new features, because it's going to roll out. But it looks like work is recently started on this. Like, it's not been in development for, I don't think, for a year or two. It looks like a lot of the features there are still in the early phases of development. A lot of things they were saying is not functional yet. So I think this expansion pack was just recently started, probably a couple months ago. So it's probably going to take maybe, probably another 6, maybe 8 months, maybe even a year for this to roll out. But I'm looking forward to it. I hope they add cores. I hope, somebody says, let's just add cores. Or give us the option. If the one thing I always wanted, Paradox to do is give people the option. If you feel like this is the way you want the game, right? Add in a little option, say, well, I'm going to allow the player to add cores if he goes into options and presses it. We don't feel like this is right, but we want to give the player the full experience, right? Like, we want them to have the choice, right? So it's the same thing with another big problem that I had with this game for a while is in Hearts Iron 2, they had assume control over allied armies if you're playing single player, right? So if you're, the US, you can command British, French, Belgium, Polish soldiers and invade the Rhineland, right? And the last few editions of Hearts Iron, they took this out. And people were saying, well, a lot of people play multiplayer, but yes, some people play single player. I play single player all the time. I don't think I played it one time in multiplayer, at least with Hearts Iron 4. And, when you're Eisenhower, right? Because you're Eisenhower, if you're playing US, you want to command all the armies and invade. You don't want to tell, hope your allies are smart enough to go along with you in the invasion. I remember playing Hearts Iron 3 where I'm invading Europe and all the British soldiers are in England and French soldiers are in England, and it's just like, you guys are not going to help out. And obviously they added a way you could add markers, give English, you have Jack. And eventually they start moving across, but it's such a one-sided thing. It's like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing all the work. Even though there are 30, 40 divisions of English soldiers in England, I can't use them because they took that feature out. Put it back in. It doesn't make any sense why it was taken out. Yeah. Anyway, that's just my heads up, my review on this announcement. I hope more details come out for it that are going to make it sound more amazing. But this is a good step forward, I think. Anyway, that does it for this mini review, I guess. Catch you in the next one.